Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima and I'm here checking out Wipeout 2048, or at least part of it, because I don't have the DLC installed, but we're going to be taking a look at the main single player campaign of Wipeout 2048, because it's an older game and I haven't done a video on it yet, so I figure I should probably give that a try. In fact, I remember the very first video I ever tried recording with the capture kit was a Wipeout 2048 race, so I don't know why I never took the time to actually come around and give this game another look, because it is one of the prettiest freaking games there is on the Vita, and considering this capture kit's on the way out, it might be one of the last videos I ever record on this one, so we'll have to go have a look. So, there is a bunch of stuff here. You can do crossplay with the PS3 version of Wipeout HD, I think it is, and you can also go online via multiplayer and ad hoc, obviously, but I do not like the multiplayer of this game at all. The multiplayer of this game it's a campaign just like the single player mode, except it throws you into predetermined races and predetermined win conditions, and there's no catch up, which I get it, it's a racing game, it's not supposed to be, but at the same time, generally the few times I ever tried to hop online, there was terrible lag. It was always on one of the hardest courses, which is like Seoul, which has 0 rails on it whatsoever. And generally in this game, if you screw up once against a human player, you're never catching up again. So, I never really was a big fan of the online campaign for this one, but thankfully there is a single player campaign. What's missing from this campaign though, is a racebox mode. Like the other Wipeout games have something called a racebox, which was basically something that lets you play through the motion controls tend to tilt this a bit. I don't know why. It's a nice touch, but I don't know why they've done it like that, but yeah, anyway, as I was saying, there's no way to, like, customize what race you want to go into. Sure, you do have a bunch of different things on a bunch of different tracks, but if you want to specifically set, like, 8 laps on a course with hard AI, or you want to do zone on some course in particular without going through the entire course layout to look at it, it's just not here for some reason. It's a little strange, but anyway. Wipeout 2048 is a racing game, and it's got a campaign map, and you can actually see the layout of the majority of it, or at least the main middle track down the middle here. So there are a fair few events to unlock, and there are bits that come off the sides here that go to things like trophies and bonus ships and all that. You can see that by those little things there. There's also speed laps you can do, which will have other functionality, like getting trophies and stuff like that. If we tap home up here, we can check a few things. So you got your extras, which is your tutorial and your credits and all that. And you can see all the tutorials here. These are mainly just like loading types. Not loading types, loading screen tips. That's always a very useful tip. You get a massive amount of speed from doing loop-de-loops. And you've got your options. Now, you've got 3 different kinds of cameras. Far is the only useful one. Close is too close and you can't see the walls. Internal is just way too quick on anything higher than C-class. So far, you should stick with that. This game's got a lot of electronic music. I think the word I should be using is... I almost call it dubstep, but then again I don't, because it doesn't sound like absolute random... It doesn't sound like some guy just bashing on an electronic keyboard, but... Then again, there is a lot of electronic music in this game, and while I do believe it fits the game, I'm not that big of a fan of it. I do like it, considering the theme, but at the same time, thankfully, I do think you can listen to external music. Pile assist. Never turn this on! Originally, when I played Wipeout 2048, I had this on, like, maximum, and it actually modifies where you don't turn. So if you're playing, like, anything at all, it just feels weird because it drags you off to the sides and all that without you even having any input over it. If you want to get good, keep pilot assist off all the time. Also of note, stay on the Wipeout configuration. You've got the racer configuration, which gives you brush to think on the R and L buttons. Unfortunately, you don't have control over the air brakes. The unique thing about Wipeout games is that they have air brakes, which give you more cornering power, but the only time you really want to be using them is when you really need to go around like a tight corner or something like that. And you can use individual air brakes on the Wipeout scheme, which is a lot easier for handling turns. On the Racer, it turns on both air brakes at once, which really slows you down, and it's a bit of a detriment. Do I even really need to tell you why touch and tilt is such a bad idea? It's... oh my god, why would you do this? Tilt to steer in a Wipeout game is the biggest oxymoron since Microsoft Works. But yeah, that was a quick look at the options. You can check your profile, and you can see your individual stats, which is quite nice, and you can also see your level. And the more levels you get, the more ships you unlock, and you can also unlock different ships via the campaign, via special events, like this one down here, this one I mean. The Kyrex Fighter is a special ship, which you unlock via a special event, and there's a bunch of those, and there's also ones you unlock via leveling up. Thankfully, despite the fact that all the ships have different stats, you're given one of the best ships you can get for this game at the very beginning, which is the Vita Speed, because this is a ship you want to learn if you want to be actually good at the game, but there is a bunch of different advantages and disadvantages. Obviously, you want to be swapping to something like the Kyrex Fighter whenever you're doing a combat match, because it's got lots of health and lots of firepower, but for everything else, you want to be something faster, like the Vita Speed. You can also use the rear touchpad to make this thing go completely nuts. Just the amount of miscellaneous detail there is in these games is just great. Like, look at all those liveries and things on this ship. Like, I know it's general of racing games with lots of branding to have stuff like that, but to have a bunch of fake brands like this so well represented, like almost like real life, it's kind of great considering the fact that this game is just like hover car racing. But anyway, we'll stick with the Pfizer, and you can also go to the community. It'll let you see who's online, what they're doing, and you'll also be able to get things like news and their high scores on events and stuff like that, which is quite neat. The unfortunate thing is it does tend to add a lot of load times, so after that I'm going to just turn off the Wi-Fi, because the loading times in this game are pretty damn bad. But we'll get into that. So the majority of goals on this game is that you have to get either a pass or an elite pass on a stage, and these are often different, very different conditions. Like if you want to get the elite pass, you'll often have to finish first when you have to at least finish 5th. I've never been able to beat this one. Never been able to beat Queen's Mall, even when I came back into this with a little bit more experience. Like, see that? Do you see that? See that shit? But yeah, as you can see, there is a reason to keep coming back to these campaigns once you've, been them the first time. Thankfully, the Wipeout DLC that they include, that includes Wipeout HD and Wipeout HD Fury, which funnily enough is remastered PSP tracks, of all things, is that you can access every ship and every event from the very beginning. So you can just piss around as much as you like, and I quite like that. If you're a Wipeout expert, just getting into Wipeout on the Vita, you probably want to start with just Wipeout HD and Fury before going to this, but nevertheless, we will get off and away anyway. So this is B-Class, 3 laps, and it's just a typical race. We're probably going to have... Will we have weapons? It doesn't say weapons are disabled, so we're probably just going to have a regular race. You can change the ship down there, but let's get into it. Now, the main problem these games have always had is the loading times. The loading times on these games are kind of annoying. It was even worse when the game launched, when you had to wait like 45 seconds for the initial load. But it's gotten a lot better over the course of patches and all that, but it's still a pretty long wait. Thankfully, restarting a race is much quicker, but it is still a bit annoying. But thankfully, it loads relatively fast these days, so you don't have much to worry about. So, let's go. This game is gorgeous. Like, this is one of the best looking titles on Vita by far. And considering this game came out in 2011, that's really saying something. It is one of the coolest looking games. There's effects going everywhere. It's got massive amounts of lights and special effects, and you name it, this game's probably got it. It's ridiculous. I really need to pay more attention to the screen I'm looking at. But anyway. Yeah, I'm in last. This won't end well if I'm not very, very good about what I do. So, Wipeout is a game about precision racing. It's not arcadey in the slightest. The idea is that you've got 2 air brakes, as you saw earlier, and the air brakes are very relevant because this game moves very, very quickly. It's got massive bursts of speed. You've got... Whoops, ow. You've got massive boost pads on the ground, which will add even more speed, and you do have a barrel roll, which will give you even more speed. It's stupidly fast, like amazingly fast. It's very hard to get used to, especially for first-time players, Like, I've been playing Wipeout for a while. Like, Wipeout 2048 was my first game, and then I checked out Pulse and HD, which are a lot harder, surprisingly. And it's a really, really fast game to the point of being extremely difficult. You've got you've also got things like those green and yellow power-ups on the floor as well. I said it's not in arcadey, but that's sort of kind of a lie. There are weapons on the ground that you can pick up, and these weapons will help you get ahead, because if you hit someone with them, they'll slow down. So you probably want to go and hit someone with this as much as possible. And you want to be absorbing some as well, because you can absorb weaponry to give yourself health back. Because if you see down there on the bottom left corner of the screen, my ship actually has durability, and this will go down when I do things like collide with walls, or what's the word I'm looking for? Collide with walls or get hit by weapons. And if you run out of health, you will have to respawn, and it'll lose you several precious seconds. And trust me, in a game like this, you do not have seconds. It's kind of silly just how little mistakes you can make in this game.
Combining super sharp handling with a heavy weapon loadout allows the pilot to zip effortlessly through the pack, picking off competitors one by one.
Yay, new ship. But yeah, as you can see, it is fast, it is furious, and it is goddamn wonderful. It's one of the best racing games I've ever played in my life. It's something that I never thought I wanted. Like, before I played Wipeout 2048, so I guess it's a lie that this wasn't my first Wipeout game, I tried the first Wipeout on the PlayStation 1 and I wasn't impressed at all. I thought the game was slow, clunky, and a bit of a pain in the ass. But considering that I've actually got the technology to turn these games into what they really wanted them to be, these games have become just a sort of fantastic example of racing finesse. There are things like time trial events, where you have to get through the courses as fast as possible. And eventually later on, they get so difficult that you will have to be absolutely perfect just to stand a chance of passing. You'll have to go through every shortcut. Every track has a series of paths you can go through. There's usually more than one path through a particular section. Like you can see up on that blue wall there was a bunch of boost pads and a bunch of boost pads and a bunch of weapon pads up there. So you could take that shortcut, get more boost pads, and come out faster on that path than you would down on the regular path. So the game has an absolute ton of learning and variation to do. You need to know exactly when to use your air brakes, exactly when to do barrel rolls through the air, exactly when to deploy your weaponry, absorb items and stuff like that. It's a really finesse-filled game. You need to be extremely good at racing in order to even stand a chance at this. But that being said, the game is actually really generous about how it handles things like the initial few stages of the campaign. I forgot I ran out of autopilot there because I'm an idiot. The first few stages of the game are actually really easy. Like, more or less, like, I'm doing pretty well here, but I'm pretty experienced at this game, so I'm not like, ridiculously bad at it or anything, thank God for that. And I'm doing pretty well. Once you get up into the second half of 2049 and the first half of 2050, like, I never got through the entire campaign of this, if you want me to be honest. It just gets that hard. The game is extremely difficult towards the second half of the whole campaign, because everything just requires you to be absolutely perfect. But again, you do get a lot of zone mode. We'll get into this. You do get a lot of opportunities to practice and get better though, which is what I like. They don't chuck you straight into the deep end immediately just from the word go. And that's good, because these games are very hard to get good at, but thankfully they have let you get good. They'll give you time to get good. But anyway, here we go with zone mode. Zone mode is fucking beautiful. This is a mode basically where you start off at the lowest speed class possible. The accelerator is always held for you, and the only thing you need to control is your turning and your air brakes. And you need to get as far into the course as possible. Every time your zone goes up, as you can see in the top left, your speed class will go up, as you can see in the bottom left. And the faster you're going, the harder it is to avoid hitting the walls. And once you start hitting the walls, you'll lose health, and if you run out of health, the game's over. So you got to get through as many zones as possible. So it is an absolute perfect way to practice on courses, because the laps will go on forever. So they're a great way to help you memorize the entire course, and to learn where you need to air brake and where you can barrel roll and where the boost pads are, because the boost pads stick out like a sore thumb, and not to mention they actually make you go faster in a mode where you can go faster than the fastest speed class in the entire game. So yeah, that's a thing. I just also want to point out again how absolutely beautiful this game is. The levels are packed with detail. It runs so smoothly. It uses something that I haven't really seen in that many games before. I mean, I know it's in a lot of them now because I learned of this technique after I played Wipeout 2048 and actually started noticing it. But it uses something called dynamic resolution changing, where if the frame rate starts to drop below, I believe it's 30. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this game runs at 30, which is a little strange considering how smooth it feels. One of very few games that can do that. It feels like it's playing at 60 FPS when it's really just 30. But yeah, it uses dynamic resolution changing, which means when shit gets too wacky and it gets too intensive on the Vita's processor and graphics unit, it will downscale the resolution so that you're not looking at as much a sharper scene, and I don't even notice. I don't even notice when that happens. The game is just that pretty. It looks different when blown up to 1080p purely because of the way the game handles. The capture kit I'm on, not the game. The capture kit I'm on handles recording. It's a little bit of a pain. Just so you know, there is a photo mode, and it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. You can make some absolutely fantastic wallpapers with this. But yeah, back to the game. So yeah, it's one of the most gorgeous games, on the Vita that there is. It runs really smoothly, and it's just absolutely lovely just to look at. Would I recommend Wipeout 2048? Absolutely. Hell, don't even bother touching the multiplayer. Just play through the single player and the HD and Fury tracks. I'm actually not that big of a fan of Wipeout Pulse, which is one of the PSP games they've included on the Vita store. Because there's a track in it that has like 5 U-turns in a row that like absolutely can't stand. But this is just the absolute right balance for me personally to have fun with it. I really wish it had a racebox mode, or maybe even like a procedurally generated mode, so I can literally just like say, hey, put me into some kind of race with the best shit possible for that race and just let me have at it. So it drop me in like a race or a time trial or something. But the game is just magnificent. Absolutely wonderful example of racing finesse combined with what the Vita was capable of and still is capable of, considering it's one of the most pretty games of its day. And even one of the most pretty games to look at even today. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I'll go play a battle race just so you know what that's like, but you've seen pretty much everything. You've seen races with weaponry, and you've seen zone mode, and there are 2 other modes that this has. There's the good old time trial mode, where you have to go through 2 laps as fast as possible, and the clock only starts once you're over the line, so that's a good mode for practice. And then there's speed lap mode, where you have to be constantly, you can't constantly just go around the track over and over again and practice, because you generally do need a lot of practice in this game. I should probably crash out and go do a battle race just so I can do it for the, what's the word I'm looking for, the demonstration purpose. But frankly, I'm having a bit too much fun, so we'll just let that go for a bit. Man, I love this game. I really need to play more of the games in this series, which makes it even more disappointing that Sony shut this studio down after they released this game, which to me kind of indicates a problem with the industry in general at this point, because do you remember when games were just about, you know, being good games and actually having fun with them? I mean, remember the times when a game could realistically only lose a tiny bit of money and nobody would give a shit because it was a good game? Like, I know this is a bit, like, off the cuff, but I feel like with the amount of money making that's gone into the industry at this point, a lot of the passion behind it is gone. Like, I imagine this really did start around the times of the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, where gaming got really, really big. Games started selling like 10 million a piece, and it's just, it all turned into making more and more money. When you can make a project like this on a handheld console, which was great, but since nobody ported, they had to shut down the entire studio anyway, and there hasn't been a Wipeout game since. I don't know when the next Wipeout's gonna be, but in my opinion, it's too, well, it's not so much too late for it as, I wish they'd put out a new Wipeout like 2 years ago, but yeah. Let's go play a battle mode before I get too depressed. Battle modes are fun, although they are the weirdest kinds of races in this game, but we'll get onto that. Because there is a battle course right here. Wait, your ship versus speed ships, and what's this one? It's just regular combat. Good. I'm going to swap to another ship. I'll swap to the Kyrex fighter. I do have another ship. The AG Systems fighter. I'll go with the Kyrex fighter. The Kyrex fighter is the best for combat. So the idea of combat is that it's not a race. All the AI ships just run around the stage, and you have to shoot them as many times as possible, and you got to try and get points for shooting them as many times as possible, and it's quite fun. So we'll do that. The downside is that the really hard stages later on really just rely on you getting a lot of quakes and just hitting people with that endlessly. It's a little bit disappointing, honestly, but I can live with it, I guess. We'll just wait for the game to load. Bam. Alright, let's do this.
Combat systems.
This ship has the fattest ass, I swear to God. But anyway, away we go. Immediately hit in the face with what looked like a bomb, but yeah. As you can see, this ship is a hell of a lot slower, but it has a lot more health. It's a lot stronger, because there is like a weapon in this game that the rockets actually give you like more rockets depending on the firepower rating of your ship. But yeah, as you can see, the idea is that you just have to beat the shit out of everything. And if you manage to successfully take out a ship, you'll get a ton of bonus points. If you hit someone, you'll get bonus points. But if you die, you lose points. So you do need to be very careful about that. There is a leech beam that you can use to steal health from other ships, but I seem to be having terrible luck with that. Anyway, plasma bomb. Boom! Boom! And I've already got enough for the pass. So yeah, these levels last for 3 minutes. Wipeout races are actually like really small in comparison to other racing games. Like, getting like 3 minutes in a typical race is actually pretty long, which is surprising. But then again, it's also pretty good because it means that you can play as you can play as much as you like and not really. I never even knew this shortcut existed. Who would have thought? Anyway, back here I go. Die. Damn. Oh well. That radar down the bomb is also pretty useful for this mode as well, because it tells you where everybody is. Hi. I completely missed you. But yeah, Wipeout 2048 is, concerning the fact that this came out the very first day the Vita did, and it's still one of the Vita's best looking games to date, that's really going to say something about how well they put this game together. It is also one of the most fun games the Vita has, because the high-speed racing combined with the amount of finesse you need to learn, but you have the opportunity to learn very slowly. And just the designs of the tracks and how you use the air brakes and just how it's all put together is just one of the best racing games I've ever had the pleasure of playing in my life. So yeah, I fully recommend Wipeout 2048 to pretty much anyone. And to be fair, pretty much everyone should have it at this point, because the moment they announced PlayStation Plus games were... PlayStation Plus was giving out free games for Vita owners, this was one of the games that was on it for like a year. So if you don't have this game already, you missed out. Who's that? I have no idea who that is. But anyway, that was just your quick little combat race. I got the Elite Pass. Yeah, this game is the shit. It's wonderful. It's great. It's one of the best racing games I've ever played. It's just so good. And it's a shame that this developer's gone now, because now we won't get anything from them. And yeah, again, just to remind you, there is DLC which adds the entirety of Wipeout HD and Fury to this game, so there's even more to do after the single player campaign, and that DLC pack is often really cheap. So yeah, this game is well worth your time and money. Absolutely. So this has been Blue Maxima, and I'll see you all next time.